Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Netflix's Audible is nominated for Best Documentary Short tonight at the Oscars, following the Maryland School for the Deaf football team in my hometown of Frederick, Maryland. I spoke to the filmmaker and a representative from the school back in February, just before they learned about the film's Oscar nomination.
My name is Matt Ogens. I'm the director of Audible.
Hello, everybody. I am Jennifer Yost Ortiz, and I am the current interim Chief Educational Program Officer at the Maryland School for the Deaf, serving both campuses.
And Anna, do you want to introduce yourself as the interpreter?
Just Anna Rose, the interpreter.
Great. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us here. So we should tell our listeners and our viewers, because it's Zoom, that we're talking about Audible. It's a new, it's a short film, and it's up for the Oscar. It's Oscar shortlisted. But my wife and I watched it the other night, and we really enjoyed it. It's about 40 minutes, so listeners, turn it on and just enjoy it. Matt, let's start with you since you're the director. How did you come up with this idea? I know you're from Maryland. You were a local guy. But when did you first hear about this dominant streak of this football team at Maryland School for the Deaf?
For many, many years. Like you said, I grew up about 30 minutes away from Maryland School for the Deaf in Frederick. Family's still there. I go there multiple times a year. But also my best friend, since I was probably 7 years old, is deaf. Still my best friend. And so I had a bit of a window into the deaf community, and saw that there was not much deaf storytelling and content in films, or often it would be sort of the conventional about and not through characters. And so I knew I wanted to tell a film not about but with the Maryland School for the Deaf 12 years before I made it. And so it took 12 years to get made and connect with Netflix, and lots of stops and starts along the way. And it happened when it happened at the perfect time.
Now, I just want to follow up really quick with you, Matt. You said you grew up 30 minutes outside of Frederick. Whereabouts? DC
and Potomac, Gaithersburg, around that area.
Gotcha. But you stayed familiar with the whole streak up here, and so remind our listeners, set the stage for what they're about to watch.
One thing to say is Coach Ryan in the film, who was the head coach in the film, when I first connected with the school and wanted to do a film, he was a player on the team. That's how long the circle and cycle was.
Right. So he had evolved up the ladder, climbed the ladder to become the coach in that time. Gotcha.
But in between that, he graduated. He went and played football for a hearing football team in college, then transferred to Gallaudet, which is a deaf university, and played for them. Came back to the school and then worked his way up. His father was the head coach when I started connecting with them.
Wow. Well, I'm a big fan of Maryland football, born and raised at the high school level. We love it up here. Well, very, very cool. So tell our one more second before I bring Jen in, real quick, Matt, tell us about the actual the story arc that you chart in terms of the season. Like, tell our listeners where this team was. It was on this dominant streak, but that streak had just ended, and you sort of you chart them sort of trying to pick themselves up and recover.
It ended when we were there, unfortunately.
You jinxed it.
We stay away. We stay back. What happens, and it makes you stronger. I think the perfect line is in the film is Mari's father is talking about how he witnessed one of the players. I mean, I'm kind of quoting in number 23, who said, "This loss will not define us." And that's true literally of that. They come back and win, but it's true of them in life. It's true of them in life. And I'd like to say I don't think of it as a football film or a sports film. That gives it its arc. It gives it its hook. But it's one element in their lives. The other element is school, education, family, relationships, right? Football is and sport is just a great metaphor for the ups and downs of life. Each game tells a story, right? Even in the film, they come back from that loss against a deaf school to come back and win against a hearing school at the end of the season. And I don't look at them as really great football players for being deaf. They're really good football players. They also happen to be deaf. There's a really big difference. Really big difference. Proven by their record, proven by playing deaf and hearing schools for many, many years. I mean,
totally. And some of the fascinating insights into that world that I didn't even know about, you know, hitting like almost like a drum or like a gong so they can feel the vibrations to start the play. You know, the idea that maybe one of the coaches says that our senses are heightened and other senses are heightened. We might be able to see a play developing better than maybe someone else. So that, I mean, I just was fascinated by that. So Jennifer, let's get you in here. So tell me a little bit about the history of the Maryland School for the Deaf. I grew up around here, so I've always been familiar with it. But when was it founded? How did it become such a leader nationally in, for the deaf community?
Sure, Jason. Thank you for asking. So MSD has a really rich history. We were founded in 1868, and we have 2 campuses in the state of Maryland, one located in Frederick, where we just celebrated our 150th anniversary a few years back. And then our second campus is located in Columbia, Maryland. And they actually will be celebrating their 50th anniversary this upcoming fall. We are a state-funded school. That being said, we're also free for all deaf and hard of hearing students throughout the state. They do not pay tuition. We are fully accredited, and we serve students birth to the ages of 21. And right now we're serving approximately 450 students, almost, again, from all over the state of Maryland, every county. American Sign Language is our language of instruction, and it provides for our students the ability to have direct access to their education, to instruction, and more importantly, to those incidental learning opportunities.
Can I?
And about 90, oh, sorry.
Oh, I just thought you were done, Jennifer. I wanted Jennifer to say something because you might not ask. It's something that I didn't know that I witnessed when I was getting to know them is the kids, the little kids that are brought in with their family that, they've just learned their child is deaf or their child just became deaf. I think it's a really important part of it that you wouldn't necessarily see in my film, but it's really special that it's, kind of from birth. But sorry to interrupt, Jennifer. I apologize.
No, not at all. That's okay, Matt. I really appreciate that addition. Yeah, absolutely. We have about 90% of our teaching faculty that is deaf, and we use a very rigorous curriculum, the same one that's used within the public schools. And both campuses are very, very nearby to Gallaudet University. They're very close to DC. They're within the DMV area. So in general, it's a very deaf friendly environment. And I think that's why we attract so many deaf and hard of hearing students throughout the state.
So do you find, Jennifer, I want to follow up on that. Do most of the students come at a young age and go all the way through to age 21? Or, I guess people can kind of transfer in at different ages.
That's actually a fantastic question, Jason. So we do have many, many students who start with us as infants. Okay. Now, typically they come from deaf families who are already familiar with the school, of course, and know how important it is to have that direct access to language. Now, those who are referred by individuals who are supporting full access also come early. We also have many, many students who transfer in at a variety of different ages. Oftentimes we see a huge influx in middle school, which is somewhat unfortunate because the reason being they transfer in at that time is that's how long it takes people to realize how much they need that direct language and that direct access. We wish we had gotten to them as babies. I mean, we welcome them, even if it's their senior year, we welcome them, absolutely. But our goal is to try to have them come to us as early as possible, because as I'm sure you know, that window of opportunity for taking in and learning language fluently is so critical.
Great. And then in terms of the sports, the athletic program, go Orioles, right? How does that work in terms of, scheduling who your opponents are? Are in the film, in the Netflix film, they there's mention of, oh, this was a hearing team, this was a deaf team. How do you go about, like which other schools are you playing against is, I guess, my question.
Well, if you're talking about football specifically, the bulk of our opponents are hearing schools. Deaf teams tend to play against a deaf team. It tends to require travel. So we might only have the opportunity to play 2 deaf teams per season. One is an away game and one as them coming to us. And then, we will typically take turns. Sometimes we have 2, sometimes we have 3 schools that we play against in a season, but it's typically hearing schools. We're always trying to add some deaf games because, of course, that peer-to-peer competition is always fun for our students.
Right. And so is it mostly private schools? I mean, I know in the film they make there's a big deal made about don't you play a team? They were like, oh, we beat that team from Texas. Like, so I mean, are they teams from all over?
Well, when it comes to the hearing teams, it varies. Some are private schools, some are public schools, believe it or not. Some are small in size, some are large in size in terms of the public schools. Now, when it comes to the deaf schools, we play against state schools, mostly schools that are similar to us. There's a school for the deaf in almost every state in the United States. And it very much depends on if the team plays 11 or 8 or 6-man football. That's really the deciding factor. So our schedule changes as, the availability changes out there of teams to play against.
Right.
And in the film, you see them playing against Texas, who came up from Austin. And if I'm not mistaken, Jennifer, I think the year before, Maryland had traveled to Austin, and that's one of their rivals. That's another big football powerhouse, of course, being in Texas. Right. I showed up on the wrong day.
Or the right day. Maybe it helped, help craft a story where they start low and end high. You know what I mean? So you never know.
Hey, am I allowed to? I'm going to put Jennifer on the spot. Sorry, Jennifer. Your sons play football?
They do.
Jason.
His proud mom.
Wait till you see her sons play.
All right, who are your sons?
Her son,
tell me about
one of
your
her sons, if I'm not mistaken, Jennifer, one of your sons was a freshman on the varsity team. He's in the film. You see him in the film. Scores a lot of the touchdowns. I mean, yeah.
What are their names and what are their positions?
So I have Zion, and he's a rusher. And then my youngest one, Zeke, is just now, he's a freshman in high school and he's a quarterback.
Zion and Zeke. A quarterback, and you said a running back?
Running back.
Gotcha. And
then he scored a couple of
running back. Yeah, sorry, I'm using the wrong words. And then he changed this year. Freshman, oh my Lord. But yeah, I think he's a running back now.
You see him score multiple touchdowns in the film.
Right. He's scoring rushing touchdowns, so you're not too far off by saying he's a rusher. You're there. That's awesome. So wow, so that's really, really cool. That's really cool. But we got to mention that in addition to your sons, who are of course the stars. You're going to say they're the stars, no? But
they're great.
No. In addition,
they're all the stars.
Right, they're all the stars. In addition, that the main sort of, I guess if we're going to say there's a main character, it's how do you say? Is it Amari McKinstry Hall?
Yeah, Amari.
How did you, Matt? How did you focus in on him as sort of I don't want to say main character, but a central focus? What about Amari made him so perfect, both on the field and then for personal life too?
Yeah, well, first, I think Jennifer said there was 400 plus students. Every one of them at any age is worthy of an amazing story. You have to pick one. So I hope I picked one where, in one way, that's just Amari's story. But another way, hopefully he represents some of the relatable, some, not all, but some of the relatable experiences that other deaf teenagers go through or have gone through. It's really coming of age film, a coming of age documentary. And I knew I wanted to follow a senior because that cusp of graduating, even if you're hearing, is a pivotal moment. But imagine if you're deaf and you're in this beautiful utopia of Maryland School for the Deaf, and Yeah, you might go to Gallaudet, which is a deaf university, but you're going a little bit more exposed, a little bit more into the hearing world. Now, I've witnessed how much like people like Coach Ryan and the teachers, everyone at Maryland School for the Deaf, the administration does their best and does a great job preparing them. Coaching football is not just about winning. It's a metaphor for life in the film, but also for them, right? Preparing them. So, and you see that, hopefully Coach Ryan talks about that. But I had to recast every year. Remember, it took over 10 years to get made. So if I wanted to follow a senior, they graduated, right?
Right. This isn't Boyhood. Or in a way.
Yeah. But I didn't get to make it till about 12 years. Right. I'm glad it took that long. And I hate to be cliche and say things happen for a reason, but this is why I love it. Because I think Amari, and again, every kid there is worthy of an amazing story, is I liked he's unique in that he was not born deaf. He got meningitis around 2 or 3. And I didn't even probably consciously decide this, but remember I had mentioned my best friend who's deaf. He wasn't born deaf. He got meningitis at the same age as Amari. And so I thought that was interesting because you have that tension of being in a family that isn't deaf. And sure, they're getting better and better at sign language, but it's still not the same access to communication as being on campus at Maryland School for the Deaf. And here's why. In every conversation, even if they're expert at ASL and they're signing with him, they're also talking to each other and having sidebars that he can't participate in. So he's not part of, his brother and sister talking over there. He doesn't, do you know what I mean? It's still isolating at times. And so there's some tension, conflict in terms of story there. His relationship with his father, his relationship with Amari. I'm sorry, let me edit that. His relationship with Jalen, who's a cheerleader on the team, which is part of the team as well. And Teddy, and I don't want to give a story, spoiler alert, but Teddy is very much a character in the film and a catalyst. And I think you could take some great lessons out of a tragedy,
Right, because without giving too much away, we want people to watch it. Let's just say that Teddy had some struggles leaving the deaf school into the hearing community and got picked on at a hearing school, and that we won't give away, but the film grapples with a lot of these issues of being in this bubble and then having, I think they even call it a bubble in the movie, and then either going to a hearing school or going to college and the world. Yeah. I
mean, look, I'm not a doctor, and like Teddy's father says, it's not black and white. That's not the only, there's other stuff going on, of course. Sure. And I'm not the appropriate person to diagnose or anything like that. But, like Jalen says at the end, his confidence about being yourself, that can apply to being deaf. That applies to being deaf is what he's really talking about, not just being gay. And Jennifer can stop me if this is incorrect, but like one thing, because I learned way more from everyone at that school than they could have possibly learned from me. I just hope we were a conduit to tell their story. I didn't want to tell my version of their story or an observational story. I spent 10 years talking to all of them till they trusted me to invite me in. Is that being deaf isn't a disability. It's a community and it's a culture. And what Anna right now is doing is interpreting a language.
Yeah. It's just a different language. Right now. Just a different language.
What's the problem?
Matt.
What's the problem? You know what I mean?
Yeah. What's
the problem?
Exactly. We're all here doing it. It's great. Well, cool. So Jennifer, then how when Matt reaches out to the school and says, I want to film and bring a camera crew, or I don't know how big of a crew it was, but
big enough.
Big enough. how do you go on a school level go about accommodating him? You know what I mean? Like how do you have, is there like a, in film sets, there's all these terms, like there's a video village over here, and then you got your craft services with the food. Like, was this sort of like a mind-blowing experience from a school perspective to have this crew descend upon your hallways?
It was actually a great experience. Like Matt said, they learned a lot from us and vice versa. We learned quite a bit from them as well. I mean, and I thought we were very complimentary to each other. They were willing to teach us a lot of things about the film industry, which we were not privy to. And they had to learn how to navigate working with an interpreter and interacting with the community. And of course, filming in a school setting causes a lot of distraction to students. But I think, really, to be honest, both groups worked very hard to minimize those distractions. It was a very exciting time. We as a school felt so honored. And it was an opportunity to spotlight our school and at the same time try to still maintain a regular academic learning environment and, continue with our regular programming, our athletics, so forth and so on. But I thought we worked together fantastically. In the course of the process, there were a lot of little things that, we just didn't realize all the nuances involved with creating a film, I think. And then for us to, at the end of it, sit back and watch, it's a really great way to reflect on all the work that we do that sometimes we don't think about. Out of school, we work so hard every day, and the students are trying their best every day. And to have the opportunity to sit back and view that, wow, we're just so proud of everybody. And we recognize what we do is so important and trying to do the best that we can for our deaf and hard of hearing students. The film is about, and typically films about deaf people often are filmed through the lens and the mentality is that, deaf people can do everything but hear, which is all well and good. Matt and his team, I think, did such an exemplary job of spotlighting our culture and our language and our norms. I think often when people look at the Maryland School for the Deaf, they might have a kind of limited scope of or vision of what that means. And in the movie, I think, well, I hope that it gives people who watch it, it expands, I think, their frame of reference and changes their perspective on what it is to be deaf and hard of hearing, of what ASL is, of what sign language is, and how important direct access is for students. I mean, our kids are the same as any other kid you'll see out there in a public school. We use that public school curriculum. Like I said, we provide them with many, many opportunities. We have things like an academic bowl and sports and drama. They have conflicts. They have their own drama. They have everything that they go through. We have a homecoming game. We have a homecoming dance. So what's the difference? The only difference, like Matt said earlier, is that we use a different language, and we have some differences in culture.
Yeah.
Ironically, I think the film, ironically, I think the film, it was in the fall of 2019. And then in the following March was when we locked down, of course, for COVID so we never had a chance to watch it together as a group. And then when I watched it again just recently, I realized that, that was also the last documentation of our pre-COVID days. Really, to be completely honest with you, we haven't had a homecoming dance since then because of the pandemic. So we're hoping to bring it back in the upcoming fall. But that movie also gave us a lot of memories and a lot to look forward to when things get back to, that no mask time that we're all looking forward to. Like you said, in the film, it mentions a bubble. And I understand that perspective, that we could be seen as a bubble. But we don't only prepare them for the future, we also prepare them to become self-advocates, to be confident, to be proud of their identity, which they're going to carry throughout their life. They are going to address a lot of different challenges no matter where they go. And I think the movie was more than just a story. I think it's making an impact on so many levels in both communities.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
She said everything I would have said.
And everything I was going to say. I think it's a great point that, that it was filmed in 2019. It was in I call it the before times. And
we edited this whole thing and did all post remotely and virtually in the pandemic. We couldn't be in the same rooms. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. So yes. And so for all you Orioles at the Maryland School for the Deaf, it's your what life used to be like, sort of frozen in time on screen. And for Matt, it's sort of a reminder of what filming was like before everything locked down. So yeah, it's wild. Man, aesthetically for you putting together, as let's put on the filmmaking hat right now. You know, visually, I love some of the stuff. Like there's that shot with like the player hitting the tackling sled with like the sun kind of coming through, like, and like the glare a little bit. But to me, the really thing I want to ask you about, the most impressive I thought was the sound design, where well, we also saw that movie Sound of Metal a couple years ago, and then of course Coda this year dips the sound out a little at the end during the climax. But for you, how did you go about crafting that sound design to try to put us, the audience, in Amari's shoes, where, you know, the sound will drop, for lack of a better term, will drop out for us, the hearing viewers too?
Yeah. So I knew that I wanted to make sound a character in the film those 12 years ago. Not exactly how, because I wanted to collaborate with people in the film about that, not just the sound designers, because I have to make it authentic, right? So I knew, you know, it's a film in some ways about sound and about senses in some ways. So at least on the surface. So I wanted to, of course, convey to a hearing audience who could never know what it's like to be deaf. That's not possible. Even if we put something over your ears, knowing you're going to take them off is different,
right?
You know? And so, but to just approach that, to give a hearing audience some sort of a feeling, and also sound, not just sound, but also feeling, in that, you know, as you mentioned with the drum, or Amari talks about with music, is feeling vibrations, right? We all feel vibrations. We're just not attuned to them. And so going for those bassier, lower, distorted sounds. So if someone that's deaf turns up the volume, they might feel it. Certainly someone that's hearing, and just to make sound, to make you feel like it's present. So having that spectrum from silent to very saturated, vibrant sounds and everything in between, because being deaf, it's not all, you're either fully hearing or fully deaf. There's a spectrum. You know, my best friend is 100% deaf, but there's levels, right? And so I also didn't want to treat, there's nuances in being deaf. It's not, I didn't, just because there's one word, I wanted to show some of those nuances so the hearing audience understands that it's not black or white. You're not just 100% deaf. And, you know, as Mr. Tucker, who was a superintendent at the time, told me, like, it's not a silent world. Go in that locker room before the game. Right. That doesn't sound so quiet.
Right. And I love that it was opening to me, or educational. They flash the lights to help get pumped up for the game too. It was excited. I wanted to go out there and start, you know, scraping down the line and making some tackles with those guys.
Me too.
You captured it.
I've been in a lot of those locker rooms over the years, and it never gets old.
It really doesn't. Well, cool. I know Zoom is flashing the old, 10-minute warning on our call. So let's pivot really quick to the to sort of the festival circuit here. I know, it played AFI Docs, the movie did, right? How did you get distribution with Netflix? Was it always a Netflix original? Yeah. They funded it from the start? Okay.
Well, not over the 12 years, but when it came together in Amari, and here's the character, this is the year to do it. I feel it in my gut, because we didn't always know. Mr. Tucker over the years was like, it's not going to happen. And like, it just happened. You never know, right? I just kept at it. I knew there was something there. So we brought it to Netflix and collaborated together at the start, before production in 2019. Yeah. Made it 2019 into 2020 and came out in 2021 and played at AFI Docs and right there in Maryland, and Hot Docs in Canada. I'm embarrassing myself.
No, it's all right. It's all right. So that's really, and now it's on Netflix. Everyone can watch it on Netflix. And and I know, so it got chosen as on the Oscar shortlist. So it's one of, I don't know, a dozen or so, 15 or something films that are making the next cut. And then we find out if it actually gets the official Oscar nomination. I think we find out February 8th, I think, is when they announce it. So will you Matt and Jennifer, at the school, are you all going to be having are you going to have a watch party the morning of that? Fire up this live stream of the announcements and with popcorn, ready to see if you get nominated.
I don't know. I'm pretty introverted, and I'm going to be in another country filming, but I'm going to obviously take off that day on a new documentary I'm working on. For me, I can't speak for Jennifer. Just to get this, first of all the films are amazing. I mean, this diverse group of filmmakers from around the world, shortlisted or not, telling diverse stories that are so important, right? So impactful. They're all important. I'm humbled and grateful, to get this far, but more so like if it means elevating the deaf community and teaching people to listen, then and about accessibility and representation in life and in storytelling, I think that helps elevate it, and that's amazing to me and humbling to me.
And how about you, Jennifer? I mean, will it be exciting if if on the 8th, you see it flash up that you're an Oscar nominated? More reason to tune into the Oscars for Maryland School for the Deaf.
Absolutely. It is very, very exciting. Like I mentioned, we never missed the opportunity, and we did miss the opportunity to come together and watch it when it first premiered. So of course, we're going to do something. We're still going to require social distancing of 6 feet. We're still going to require masks and things like that. We will work out the logistics, but definitely we're going to do something because we're very, very excited.
That's so great. And I guess just sort of in closing, as a Frederictonian myself, and Jennifer, it's really cool to sit home. I gotta say, my wife and I to sit and just turn on Netflix, and we're seeing Amari going on a date on a sidewalk, having ice cream or whatever it was, right on the streets of downtown Frederick, and seeing the hallways and the football fields and the surrounding homes and neighborhoods of Maryland School for the Deaf. It's so cool. So just speak to that a little bit, Jennifer, about how, it's good promotion for the school and for the city of Frederick.
Absolutely, Jason. I couldn't agree more. We often talk about the quality, I guess, of deaf people living here in the Frederick area. Really, I mean, Frederick is an amazing town. Wherever I go, they at least, if it's a cashier, if it's somebody that I'm interacting with, they at least know how to finger spell, or they have interpreters at the ready. I mean, it's just so deaf friendly and so accommodating. The Frederick community is so focused on inclusivity, and they always make sure that includes the deaf community. You go to the store, they provide ASL interpreters for all of the health classes. The quality here is just absolutely amazing. So as a school, we want to not only, kind of show who we are, but we want to reflect the community at a whole. It's got a small town feel. And we've noticed there's a lot more art out there now. I mean, I could go on and on and on. I mean, I don't know. Can you tell how much I love Frederick? It's just so fantastic. Anyway, I moved here. I moved here for my son's education, no question. Yeah. And I thought maybe once they graduate, we'd relocate, but no, we're permanent Frederictonians, like you said.
Oh yeah, it's the best. That's why we live here.
And also, I mean, I can't neglect Columbia. Columbia is a fantastic area. It's really close to DC. It's really close to transit. It's close to Baltimore. It's near the highway. So both locations are just prime for students.
Oh yeah, it was really cool seeing all of the local images, and it really does show off and highlight the school, including that new basketball gym that looked a little bit. We used to play there in like youth basketball. We played against Maryland School for the Deaf there, and that gym looks like it was renovated. So anyway, it's a great showcase for the school. But beyond that, any viewer, you don't have to be from around this area. I mean, I think anyone around the world, around the country can turn on Netflix and really enjoy this thing. So I really appreciate it. Again, everybody, it's called Audible. It's now streaming on Netflix. Matt, Jennifer, I just wanted to say, and Anna, interpreting, thank you so much for joining us on WTOP. This was great getting to catch up with you. Anything you want to say before we bow out?
Yeah, I mean, I want to thank you for Jason for having us and talking about Audible, but I also want to thank Jennifer and Anna, who, yes, they're part of the film, and working with Maryland School for the Deaf, you have to, it's a collaboration. It's not just them letting us in, and it's like we made the film together, and I couldn't have made it. We couldn't have made it without them, and also getting it right, because the film is not just for a hearing audience. It's as much, I'd say, more so for a deaf audience. So I had to get that right, which means you want to make it together.
Right.
You know, Anna was my interpreter. one of our great interpreters. So
yeah, everyone you're seeing here is sort of all pitched in to make part, like honorary crew members in a way, you know, to help make it possible. So essential crew members. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Again, it's called Audible, now streaming on Netflix. Only 40 minutes, so turn it on. Let's go. Watch it tonight. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us on Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time. I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the DC area is great, and Podcast DC gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast DC.